Hello and welcome to our first session. Our topic for this session will be, MODAL words. So I know that you have a lot of questions in mind while hearing these words or while reading this one. I know that you have questions like this. First, what is the root word of the word modal? Second, what's the meaning of the word mode? Third, what do we mean by modal verbs then? Fourth, what are modals and when to use those? Fifth, how important are modals in speaking and writing? So this would be your test. You have to write all the questions written here and then you're going to answer by listening to the discussion proper that we will going to have in the surface later. Are you ready? Bring out your notebook and ball pen and write all the necessary information and the answer to these questions. Hi, let me introduce myself. I'm Miss Josephine, and today we're going to answer the questions you have in lieu of modal verbs. Let's know first the etymology of the word modals. Modals pertaining to or affected by a mode. From 1560s, it's originally a term in logic from Middle French modal and directly from medieval Latin modalis, of or pertaining to a mode, from Latin modus, which means, listen to this, measure, extent, quantity, proper measure, rhythm, song, manner, a way, fashion, and even style. So that's what mode really means. In late Latin, also mode and grammar and logic from by root and med take appropriate measure. It was used in musical sense from 1590s and grammar from 1798. So what is modal verb? A modal verb is a type of verb that is used to indicate modality. That is likelihood, ability, permission, request, capacity, suggestions, order, obligation, or advice. Modal verbs always accompany the base form of another verb, having semantic content. Think of modal verb as relating to some mode or form. A modal verb is a helper, it helps, that gives additional information about the verb that follows it. It includes such words as can, will, should, and may, among others. Modal verbs are different modes of the verbs and can express an ability, permission, request, obligation, or advice. The definition of the meaning of the verb differs on the mode you will use or the purpose of the action. Let me simplify this concept by giving a simple example from the phrase, I follow the rules. Listen carefully. I follow the rules. We'll just add one modal verb on this phrase and let's see how it differs from the first perspective. First example, we will use the modal verb can. Let me read this one. I can follow the rules. We'll just add the word can. And the meaning differs. The meaning implies that he or she or the subject has the ability to follow the rules. For the word can expresses ability. We just use the word can. Second, I should follow the rules. Here, it implies that the subject has to follow the rules because that's what morality, that's the morality or the standard of morality that we have. But an individual can decline the advice or the specific action if he or she wants to. They still have an option. Not like a third statement, I must follow the rules. It means that an individual or the subject has no other option but to follow despite of the excuses the subject has. We just use the word must. We just add the word must, and the meaning differs from first perspective until here. Let's look at the last example. Here, I just use the word may. I may follow the rules. Here, the subject can follow the rules. It is a possibility that the subject can follow the rules, but not certain that the subject will do the action. Do you get it? Good. Let's take a look at this picture. I taken this from the Simpsons family. As we can see, Marge just used one action word, and it is go. But in the three scenarios, she used different modal verbs to express her thoughts and feelings. And to add one simple word that you will add or subtract in a sentence can make a big difference to the meaning itself, and that's how important and powerful modal verb is. So you should be careful.
So how can we differentiate the two? Let's simplify the concept by understanding the graph here. So you can see when I say certainty, there is no chance that the action will not happen. It is very certain that the action will happen sooner or later. Unlike probability, which is in the brown line, it says that there's a big chance that the action will happen. But there's a little portion of it that the action might not happen. But there's a big probability that it will happen. Unlike possibility has a big portion that the certain action will not happen. Just like what you were saying.
Of something either in the present or in the future. Possibility of any event is always at 1 or 0. Example, yes or no. Let's have this example. Think you should go back to the doctor. The rash could, may, might, or could get worse, and you might have scars later. We use could, may, might to express possibility. When I say possibility again, it describes something that might occur. The chance that something might happen. The term possibility may refer to something with a great chance of happening or small chance of happening. In actual use of word possibility is most often used when talking about something that has lesser chance of occurring. While probability describes something that might occur, the chance that something might happen. The term probability is used in mathematics as a ratio as well. In the strictest sense, the word probability may refer to something with a greater chance in compared to possibility. Used to ask for or give permission, or for informal conversation alone. Informal, it can be your friend, it can be your neighbor. So when you're asking for a permission to your nanny or yaya, you can give, like this example, can you give a glass of wine, nanny? Because he or she's asking to someone lower than him or her. You can drink this water, friend, because they are in hierarchy, they're almost in the same status. Unlike in may is commonly used to ask for gift or give permission, but may is more formal and for formal conversations. If you're asking for permission to someone higher rank and older ones. Like for example, it's your favorite line when you want to go out. Mom, may I go out? Why are you saying that? It's because your teacher is older than you and you are giving a high respect to your teacher. That's why you are saying may instead of can. Do you get it? Like the other example, I have another piece of cake, Dad. It's a formal request because he's asking or she's asking to his or her father. Next. So when I say may, we are expressing or asking permission to someone higher or older than us. Unlike can, someone who has the same status to us or someone lower to us. It's an informal way of asking permission. Now, let's proceed to the would and could. How can we differentiate the two from the first two that we have mentioned? Would, when I say would, is commonly used in the main clause of conditional sentences to show that a situation is unreal, not true. Something that's in the imagination of human beings, because we're also imaginative, you know. Because it can express tentativeness, would is also used in polite invitation, offers, and requests, shows uncertainties. Like for example, that we have.
So yeah, we're using the word or the modal verb would if the certain action is uncertain. Unlike could, we're using this modal verb if we're expressing certainties. So you would rather use could than would if you are expressing a certain action or a certain permission. Do you get it? Great, let's proceed. So here are the examples that we have. First, do you think I could leave early tonight? It's like a tentative request. Or, could you give this to her? The pencil might fall. It shows certainties somehow in compared to the modal verb would in asking for permission. Do you understand? Again, what are the four modal verbs to use when you want to express permission or asking for permission? Yeah, you get it. Would, could, might, may, and can. I hope that I will see that you're gonna use that modal verbs sooner or later. So yeah, we're almost finished and we are in expression or expressing obligation. So when we say obligation, we divided it into two obligations. One is obligation alone, command, and no other option but to follow. However, when I say moral obligation, it's an obligation or command, but you still have the option to decline or reject. Here, in obligation, you are obliged to do the action for it's in moral obligation. You are obliged to do the action for it's in the standard of morality, but you can decline the command, however. You have the option not to do the certain action, but it will define your belief in morality. You are doing things because you believe that stuff is right thing to do. They can be used for expressing advice as well. Moral obligation.
Yeah, let's categorize the four modal verbs depending on its intensity. First is must, second is need to, third is have got to, and fourth is have to. Now let's proceed to the moral obligation. When we say our moral obligation it's in the standards of morality, but we'll divide it into two. And the two modal verbs that we could use in expressing moral obligation would be should and ought to. When we say should and ought to are often interchangeable. So there's a slight difference of meaning between them. When using should, the speaker expresses his own subjective view, his opinion or her opinion. It's her morality anyway. Ought to is more objective. When you say objective, it's something came from factual information, from a law, from a duty or regulation. So it's objective indeed. Should is a weak obligation, and we use it to give advice as well. So here in our example, you should study hard so you can pass the exam. So it's the subjective way of morality of an individual, and it's usually based on emotion. We should leave now. Unlike ought to, you ought to listen carefully during class discussion. It's regulation given. So, do you get it? So, it's taken from something factual, from a study, from a research, from a thesis, and like, should we use it when we think that it's the right thing to do. So, I hope you learned a lot from this session, and see you next week. Goodbye.